So, yeah, I've done enough research and experiments on myself as far as my world to finally realize that, yes, when I go out there in public, since I've released basically all of my demons, when I go out there in public and I take on demons of the environment, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's animals, people, mixed company, diversity, I will suffer the release process the following week in this activated environment. I will suffer that. And now that I'm aware that correlation does equal causation, that when I'm around diverse company for longer than an hour, in enclosed spaces for longer than an hour, that I will be exhausted, but I will also be feeling the pain and suffering of release, retention. It is entropy hanging out with people. What is entropy? Thermodynamics. It is when the system goes through an energy conversion because of an exposure to a new entity that then has to use resources in the body to assimilate to those resources and also release the demons. And that's why this last week I was eating foods I don't normally eat, like ice cream with peanut butter and red raspberries. And I even had a spoonful of ice cream yesterday, or peanut butter yesterday. And it was so good. It reminded me when I was so sick a couple years ago and I finally was able to eat food. And it was the spaghetti that I was like, oh my God, I was worshiping that spaghetti a few years ago, as if I was reborn and discovered food for the first time. That's the feeling that I was reminded of yesterday when I was eating a spoonful of peanut butter after eating peanut butter ice cream and red raspberries. And even before that, after that, I had cabbage with Asian dressing and spaghetti noodles that were chilled. And then before that, before even the ice cream, I had venison. I had a few little venison steaks and white rice. And I ate that. And a couple days ago, I was just eating maybe a little bit of spaghetti, but I wasn't really that hungry. I would do my Facebook Live, yes. I'd drink my coffee with cream and everything, but I wasn't eating that much because my body was going through some interesting stuff. And so, yeah, yesterday my neck was hurting like you would not believe. I mean, it wasn't like so painful, but I could feel the back of my neck just laying on the back of my pillow watching Grey's Anatomy. I was just like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. Going from one side to the other side, it was uncomfortable. And then there was a little bit of respite, and I was talking to my husband, just cracking jokes because I was feeling so thankful I wasn't feeling the pain. And then the pain came back again, and I felt the back of my neck, and I'm just like, oh, it's a little bit swollen, but hey, whatever. And that's when I fed the pain the cabbage and the Asian dressing and the noodles. And I was up at 3 o'clock this morning. I mean, I was falling asleep. I fell asleep so quickly, and I even catch myself snoring around 7 o'clock. And I wake up periodically 10, 11, 12. I mean, I would get really good sleep between 7 and midnight. And then, I listened to some videos and go back to sleep again. And then I woke up straight up at 3 o'clock a.m. and I released some demons, and it was a little bit painful. So my fever broke yesterday or the day before, I forget. And then yesterday my neck was hurting. And so, yeah, I can now make correlation equals causation that being out there in mixed company is going to be a painful process of release. If I didn't know what I know now, I would chalk it up like Jillian's allergic to people. Jillian's allergic to the public. Oh yeah, I mean, when you're not trying to stay cured and you're not treating your disease, yeah, people can look at that situation as an allergy to people, but that's what's supposed to happen. But in a less dynamic environment, a less activated environment, you can take on microbes, the polygamous microbes, the diverse polygamous microbes from the animals, from the humans. children, plants, whatever, antigen. And it would be relatively peaceful. Your body takes on the information, the immune system does what it does, and you're no big deal. It's only when the climate changes, like spring allergy season, cold and flu season, or a storm coming through. People get their rheumatoid arthritis. They get the feeling of their bones aching when the season changes. And so, yeah, people do feel what it's like to take on microbes, but they only felt it before the climate change. They only felt it twice a year, and that's when all the therapies came out or all the different medications came out, putting things to sleep, causing more colony units that they'd have to deal with the following climate change. So every single time you took your Claritin, or you took a therapy, or you took some kind of NyQuil, you might have gotten a little bit of relief at that point in time, but then you'd have to deal with those microbes. If they really weren't allowed to be released, you'd have to deal with those microbes later on when the climate changed yet again, predictably yet again. So, yeah. So now I'm thinking, like, I was invited to a wedding to go in October, and I'm thinking, like, after 2 days of being in mixed company and the amount of pain I had to deal with this week, and how the amount of food I had to deal with to make up for the lost resources. I mean, I had fun, but holy shit, can you imagine going to a wedding? I don't even know if I want to go. I mean, I want to, but oh my God, I know what I'm in for. Holy shit, I know what I'm in for. And that's the thing, that when you finally activate your immune system and then you see what happens when you hang out in mixed company, the kind of choices you're going to have to make, that it's going to be pissy to other people who already have an immune system that they're already okay with degrading and taking on microbes, polygamous microbes. And when the climate is that aggressive, they might feel the pain and suffering, which happens within the last, couple years. Those like my husband would be down for a week when it was, an aggressive climate change. Okay? So when I can feel the changes just from changing my atmosphere, just to go into a different space with different people for longer than an hour, shit, what will I be dealing with when I come home? Oh my God. That's the suffering that I will be dealing with, is how do I manage the mainstream world where people are okay with dying and reproducing and taking on substance and putting it, curing it and starving themselves and pleasure and paradise. And I know exactly what people are in for because I feel it every single time I come home after being around a lot of people. And I'm just like, oh my God, I don't even know what to say. How will people won't deal with it. They'll die suddenly. They can't handle it. No. That's what's fucking crazy. That's what I faced this week, was actually paying the piper for being out in mixed company. That was the payment system of Mother Nature. That was a major hard lesson and something I'm to think about. And I know that the October is like a few months away and anything can happen, but I'm just right now, I don't know if I want to be suffering that much for somebody's wedding. I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if it is, because I know what I felt this week and it sucked. I mean, it wasn't as bad as it was a couple years ago, but hey, it could be as bad as a couple years ago when I'm taking on all this diverse microbes in another environment. And when they start incubating and metastasizing, shit, will I feel like I did a couple years ago? Is it worth it? Oh my God. And the pain in my neck wasn't that bad, but it was on and off. But oh my God, that's being sadistic, is knowing that when you're out there, knowing what's going to happen when you're taking on polygamous microbes that are so diverse, that is trying to compete with your microbes, with your spirit. And you're feeling that pain and suffering, man. And it's like, oh God. Why would be a sadist? That's the lesson about the J world, is people are walking into situations they have no idea what the fuck they're walking into because they're under the influence, or they're under the influence, or they're starving themselves. So they're just living off of the fumes, or they're highly distracted. And that's why the system's like, you can't do anything, Jillian, because people are already set in their ways, their lifestyles, their belief systems, politics, religion, and science. There's nothing you can do. The only thing you do is talk about yourself, and that's about it. And make the choices best for you. But holy shit, if I'm going to take on a character today, it'll be a whistleblowing of Mother Nature. I'm whistleblowing on Mother Nature. This is what you were not told. See, I'm like Adam and Eve finally picked and ate from the tree of knowledge, and holy shit, I'm ousted from the Garden of Eden. There's no pleasure in paradise, not anymore. My pleasure in paradise is at home. And I know I'll have to suffer when I go out there for longer than an hour. Holy shit. That's the death of the old world. And to face that notion that that's exactly what the old world was the accumulation of microbes that eventually will be set off when all the conditions are right. And some people don't survive it. Died suddenly, diagnosable conditions, or you will suffer for being out there. You will suffer for activating your immune system. You will suffer. But through that suffering is then innovation. It's moments of clarity. It's making the connections. Oh yeah, I just had, through that pain and suffering of this week, I made these connections about Tavistock, the conspiracy community, Groundhog Day, fear and change and all that stuff, the activists again. And what's the return on that investment? That I can articulate a thought process. I can articulate and convey information that's not only important to me for my knowledge and my confirmation that I'm going the right direction, but also gives some people a glimpse of how this world works. Not that they really want to know, because people do read stories, but it doesn't penetrate. But it's maybe somebody out there might take on some of this information, and who knows what they'll do with it. It could spark something else within their world. But that's the return on my investment, is the fact that I can watch myself improve. Even if it means nothing to somebody else, except that I'm just entertainment. They're not going to change, and that's okay. But that's my return on my investment. And it is a suffering, because I will be on my own most of the time. My husband will do what he does. I'll get invited to things that I'd be like, dude, I know I'm going to fucking suffer. And I'm going to have to play that game of, is it worth suffering for? Is it worth suffering for? Oh, God, is it worth suffering for? Yeah, that's what it's like to be actually awake. When you're awake, it is a suffering like you would not believe. And that's what people are awake in different ways. They are. They're awake through their pain and suffering. They're awake through knowing a different storyline. They're awake through knowing that they're going to have to figure out how they're going to assimilate to a world that is a dying world and try to make the best out of a really fucked up situation such as this climate change. And there's nothing you can do about it, really, because the system has done this before. I mean, look, the new guy that might be replacing Klaus Schwab, it was his name, Yuval. He's born in 1976. Yes, he is Israeli. And he was educated at some of the finest universities in Israel and other places. And they want an extremely intelligent, intellectually capable, tolerant, peaceful population. Okay? And so that's what the system is gearing towards. And there are people that will represent that. And so that's the light at the end of the tunnel, is knowing that through all this bullshit that we're going through right now, The system is trying to evolve humans to be more than just leering lecherously at women and men and playing God to each other and managing each other's, lifestyles and belief systems with perceptions and characterizations and intolerance. The system doesn't want to deal with intolerance and people who are so traumatized from each other, from their genetic line, from their family and friends, and they're tired of dealing with predators. They're tired of dealing with intolerance. They're tired of come on. You've got to know what the intention of the system is. It's not to destroy humans. It's to evolve them. And you see they're dealing with resistant people who don't want to be evolved. They don't want to evolve. But evolution is painful, yes. So evolving for the better. But yeah, you can go through a certain amount of pain and suffering, and that's the reward, if you can handle it, for a better future. But holy shit, I'm thinking of we're in 8 billion people, eventually be 11 billion because Africa is up and coming. And they'll go through their own pain and suffering, but that's Africa. They're going through their own evolution. And some are starting out at such a baser level, because you're seeing that with some of these African influencers out there in Africa. They're teaching them the basics. The internet is going to get everybody on the same page on some level, but you're going to watch people go through elementary type information. And they'll go through the same thing that we went through. The sexual revolution, the drug revolution, the sex, drugs, and what else? Civil rights, I guess. All of that. And the West are going to go through their own growing pains of pain and suffering. And it's necessary. Or else what? We're going to deal with the thing like Gaza for the rest of our lives, watching people destroy each other, hate on each other. You know, the Forbes map of the Doomsdayers bunker, and they're talking about asteroids, which I think actually is going to be legit, but we'll see. But they're talking about the asteroids, and they're showing even with climate change and all that, but that even Gaza is going to be underwater. Okay? Parts of Africa are going to be underwater. You see the U.S., you see where the eclipse lines, and then all the different earthquakes, the New Madrid fault line. I learned about the New Madrid fault line a couple years ago. Well, actually more than that, 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, in the conspiracy community. And when I left California, left Sacramento, someone I knew lived in Sacramento, moved to like Kansas or Oklahoma, and I forget which. And I'm like, oh my God, the New Madrid fault line, there's going to be an earthquake at some point, and everyone's going to fall into the, And they're like, yeah, okay, conspiracy person, So I left that alone for a while. But now it's resurfaced through the eclipse because the path of the fault lines, and of course all the different earthquakes that we've been feeling here in Ohio, especially up north. I haven't felt any earthquakes over here in Canton, so I don't know. But Ohio is on the edge of the New Madrid fault line. You see in the Forbes map of the U.S., of the Doomsday map, it shows that half of the U.S. is underwater. It's the left side of the map, and then there's a split in the middle is that the Mississippi that's cutting through, and then there's the coastlines are going to be inundated. I mean, now that Forbes article seems a bit more legit, more than just a fear-mongering thing, because that's kind of what all of us, even the conspiracy community, have chalked it up to be. It's just a conspiracy. Even the conspiracy theorists don't even believe in half the conspiracies that they talk about. They don't look at it as like, it's nothing. That's just Forbes, right? That's the irony, is that when Forbes, a very well-renowned, purveyor of information, is saying, hey, this is what they are envisioning, this is what could happen. They're bringing in scenarios like asteroids, and then you see the movie Look Up, or Don't Look Up, with Leonardo DiCaprio, and you're hearing about asteroids and all that. And it's, all the movies are like a predictive programming, and you're just like, oh shit, maybe Forbes is correct. That's why I keep going back to it. Because I already told you, with climate change, the seas rising, parts of the world, a lot of the world will be underwater, especially Gaza. So all of you are like, oh gosh, these people are, are suffering. Yeah, we're all fucking suffering. But I'll tell you, You have a lot more fish to fry in your own world of the UK, Australia, and US than worrying about some place that might be potentially underwater in the future. You got to save yourself. But again, you know how that goes. When people are starving and they're hoarding trinkets and conspiracy theories and friends and family and cheap Chinese goods and all that, and they're starving, they think all food is poison. Well, they're going to go and save somebody 6,000 miles away. They're going to be beating on the drums of activism. Man, my husband. Why does he do that? He's, oh my gosh, give me 1 second. Why would you guys beat on the drums of activism when you have your own shit to deal with? Hold on. Yeah, I don't understand why he does that. But whatever. I guess he's okay. I know he's driving. But that's the thing. You have your own fish to fry over here. What the hell? Okay? I would pay attention to your own backyard than of somebody else. But that's the thing. When people are dying, when people are malnourished and they're dying and they're lacking the necessary nutrients to think actually very logically, with some sense, when they're deficient in minerals and nutrients, not only are they hateful, but they'll fall into the Tavistock lines of thought, the programming of activism, destruction, whatever. They'll fall into the stories that were given to them a long time ago, and they won't evolve. And they were given so many stories. They were given so much. They were given evidence. See, here's evidence that this place is bad and this place is good and da da da. Oh, here's look at all my cash. I'm saving so much cash because I'm anti-government. Here's my cash. Look, see, I'm resisting. You see this braggarts all over Facebook. They're like, oh yeah, I only use cash, but they're starving. Do you see the correlation? Those are all about hoarding people, places, and things, and cash. But they don't look at food as important. No, it's already told you. They already told you food was poison. They already told you they couldn't handle the food supply. They're aging, they're degrading. They're afraid of the air, food, and water. They think that the clouds are fake or real. See, maybe all the clouds were part of just the climate has been engineered, the weather has been engineered for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years, millions of years. Why do you think you see petrified faces? Why do you think there's petrified wood? Why do you see giant animals and potentially giant trees? Because somebody was able to engineer the climate and destroy whatever world that was here before, that people are just discovering that may probably exist, like the giants. So to say that the clouds are fake means you finally woke up to the realization that your world is not organic. Right there, that should have told you your world's not fucking organic. It's synthetic. It's contrived. It's planned and all that. And yet you want to resist that and think that, oh God, you're all going to die. Not necessarily. I mean, now that you know that everything is planned and contrived and they're telling you what they're doing, oh, but you're resisting it. How do you resist someone telling you, hey, I'm touching you? And you're like, no, you're not. You're not touching me. And they're resisting that knowledge that someone is touching them, yet they're touching them. So you're standing there and I'm touching you, right? I'm going like this to you, poking you. And you're like, no, you're not poking me. Nope, you're not poking me. Nope, that's a conspiracy theory that you're poking me. That's what conspiracy theorists do. They resist the information that is given to them right in their face. They can't fucking see it. That's the irony of the conspiracy. That's Tavistock. That's the irony of the conspiracy community, is that when they say, yes, the clouds might be synthetic, and you're like, oh gosh, they have to be organic. Well, they were always that way. organic, synthetic, it doesn't matter. They were always contrived in some way. Maybe they might look different 20 years ago. Maybe the lines weren't as excessive. But it was still contrived. It was still fake. It was always fake. So the system is telling you, yeah, well, here's the patents. You already Googled the patents. Okay. So now that you know the climate is contrived and there was different climates before in different areas, some places had water, other places didn't, and other places had ocean. Okay. So now you know this. What's the point of resisting it? What's the point of trying to stop it? You're being given valuable information. You've been given valuable information, and yet people are just in major denial. Even the conspiracy community is in major denial. What are they in denial of? That they can't stop it. They're going to meetings, they're selling t-shirts, and they're paying money to go and galvanize even the change.org. That's all just change.org, where you're signing those petitions. It's just giving you an avenue to have a voice and galvanize people and find like-minded people to hang out with. Every time that freaking petition came out, yeah, it raised awareness. But it didn't make the changes that you expected. Oh yeah, take Jillian off the internet. They had a change.org petition for that 7 years ago. I'm still on the fucking internet. Oh, but you had a place to go and voice your issues using me as a scapegoat. Oh yeah, change.org. Here's the awareness. Watch this movie. Frankenskies. I get it. I understand. You now are aware that the world you live in is not what it used to be, and now you're trying to let everybody know the world is not, what is it, henny penny? The sky is falling? The sky is falling? How many times, can you live off of henny penny lifestyle? I guess people are. They're spinning through their hamster wheel pretty quick, and they're aging while they're at it. Yeah, it's synchronized chaos. Even your conspiracy activism is a synchronized chaos. It's expected, predictable, because somebody gave you that information to use. People get radicalized. And the system has to come in and regulate if you get too big for your britches. But yeah, people become radicalized. And then they get cemented. And that's how the system was able to take down a lot of people, because people, They were like Adam and Eve. They thought they lived in fucking paradise. And yeah, the system gave you pleasure in paradise. They gave, just like Universe 25. They gave you family and friends and traditions and food and air and water and innovation and everything you could possibly want. Fendi bags and pastries and animals and sex and sexual orientation. So you got so addicted to pleasure in paradise that you could not possibly give it up. And when the system changes in the background, because they know they can't change you, and they get you all addicted to pleasure in paradise, then that pleasure in paradise and everything that you have come to depend upon will now actually work against you, not for you anymore. Remember, all of Hollywood, they gave them pleasure in paradise. They gave them fame and fortune. When I look at the actors in Hollywood, oh yeah, they're good at delivering their lines. They were trained for that. Just like those who are trained to be a lawyer, teacher, or doctor. You're trained for that. But are they really that remarkable when they're trained in such high levels of innovation? When you're trained in an area because you have the capacity to learn something and deliver when it needs to be delivered, yeah, okay, someone who can't do that will worship someone who can do that. But if you had the right genetics and the right area and the right training and the right connections, you would be just like that person. So then I don't find anyone out there that's in high levels of government or even in the Hollywood politics, religion, science that remarkable, because you have been trained, you've been radicalized. Your redundancy, your genetics offered that capability. So yeah, doing what I'm doing, making the connections that I'm making. Oh yeah, I had the training in the background for it, and I had the suffering and the pain and all that. And people are like, oh gosh. Yeah, well, I'm showing you that yeah, it takes pain and suffering and the ability to change and evolve and to walk away and to listen to your gut to make the connections and potentially save yourself. And so I don't want to say that I think that I'm, better than anyone else. No, you shouldn't worship anyone. You should know that they had the gift at very early on of how to change and evolve. And I'm not saying that you as a grown-up right now doesn't have the capacity. Of course you do, but it requires a lot of, strategy to develop an innovative plan to survive this climate change. Okay? So yeah, I don't really worship anyone that's a mover and shaker out there because they were trained in that world. And just like that guy that's going to replace Klaus Schwab, born in 1976. He's my sister's age. 1976. Okay? A young dude. Extremely cerebral. Yes, he is homosexual. Okay, big deal. Very smart. Extremely smart. And that's why I said, this is a person to watch. What was his name again? Let me see his name. Hold on. Yeah, I think he's homosexual. I believe he is. I think I read it somewhere. He has a partner, a male partner. Jeez. Got a lot of information here. Oh yeah, Yuval Noah Harari. Professor Yuval Noah Harari's official page managed by his team. Okay. And he's an author. He's a mover and shaker over there in the World Economic Forum. What's his background? What do you say? History began when humans invented gods and will end when humans become gods. History began when humans invented gods, and history will end when humans become gods. Let me see. Anyway, so I think I saw that he was educated like at the Hebrew University or something in Israel. I forget, but I found it somewhere. I don't know where I found it, but that's okay. Anyways, you can Google him and you can just check him out because he does have some good clips. He does have some good quotes. And he's full of innovation. And that's who might be replacing Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum. Okay? So, just be open to seeing who's coming up. Gen X is coming up. He's Gen X, 1976. Okay? He is Gen X. So, will humans be able to surpass and survive even their own ignorance and education and knowledge? Well, it's called balance. It's paying the piper. It's intending to now develop your brain versus using your body for the things people are using their body for. And the system has to get rid of a lot of excessive fat that it doesn't need. We're overly protected. And when you're overprotected, then you are underprotected because there's too much to wade through, too much distraction, too much to manage. And so this last week, I had a lot to manage as far as my immune system. And there was no way I could manage anything else aside from me taking care of myself. So imagine if I had a child, I had a dog, or I had something else that I had to take care of, and or other obligations, then the healing process, the literal healing process, would have to then be put to the wayside. That's when people take remedies, they take away food. And so could humans survive their own ignorance as well as knowledge? Well, when you're out in public, you're taking on immortalized germline cells at war with you, and you have to realize that's what you're taking on. And which is why some places don't get as many frequencies, or they're up to the standard in that community, and they have a team of scientists that can manage their evolution. And you see why people are really skinny, because when you're skinny and strong and you have a very specific diet, you'll be able to last a certain amount of time. And you're around other people who are in a more of a homogenized, like a herd of people that are in a relative equilibrium. But again, you don't know what happens in between each public appearance of these people. They could be sick in between each. Who knows? You only see what the system wants you to see as far as these people. So when you're out in public, you are taking on immortalized germline cells at war with you. Immortalized germline cells at war with each other. That's the whole Henrietta Lacks that they discovered through cancer, that those are immortalized germline cells that are competing with the resources in your body, which is why they are known to be the competition and to be carved out. But if you change sides, if you look from the perspective of the cancer or those other competing forces, opposing forces, they're looking at you as the enemy. And so it is a war. That perspective I learned on Grey's Anatomy when they were talking about the perspective of a tumor enveloped in the womb of the brain. And they're looking at the human as something that's evil, that should be managed, as well as the human looking at the tumor as something evil and should be managed. Because you can imagine now what politics, religion, and science does. Y'all think that each other are evil and should be managed, right? And so you hold polygamous microbes in your immune system. One day, they will work against you if you do not release them. And it is not using the J juice, because the J juice, when you do so much of it, especially in this environment, it'll just cure them in your body and they'll metastasize and you won't evolve. And when you don't evolve, you're not taking on substance, you're not releasing the demons, and the environment is still working against you like a statue that is destroyed by the elements over time. And so the aging process and the diet suddenly comes from an out of control polygamous immune system. And of course, your lifestyle reflects your microbial polygamous situations. When you're hanging out with animals, family, friends, lifestyles, belief systems, and lack of effective balance release process. What is polygamous? Practicing, relating to, or involving polygamy. Polygamous societies. It's a zoology of an animal, typically having more than one mate. Okay? And so when you are around diverse company and you're taking on the ectoplasm, the microbes, it turns into a polygamous situation because it is fornication at the micro level. No, you don't have a billion literal sister wives like you see on the show, but when you're around a bunch of people, okay, you're taking on all these microbes, and it's exponential. The more people you hang out with and the longer you're with them, the more that situation becomes polygamous. And then you have all this offspring called mucus or potential cancer in the future. And then when the body tries to release and you're taking your remedies, you're taking your supplements, you're taking your detoxes, you're taking all the different medications to manage disease, then that develops even more polygamous situations, more offspring the body has to deal with. And it becomes a chain reaction of events that people can't handle. And so germs are immortalized germline cells, and will it work for you or against you? Okay? So in a closed immune system under treatments, humans, tumors, cancers are a conglomeration of all the diversity in their immediate environment and lifestyle of public exposure. Animal, tumor, cancers are also a conglomeration of all the diversity in their immediate environment and lifestyle of public exposures. Zoology is a polygamous germline cell causing tumors, two or more entities. Zoology, the scientific study of behavior, structure, physiology, classification, and distribution of animals. the animal's life of a particular area or time. Okay? So polygamy, zoology, and then, of course, the system does all the experiments, and they know that animals and even babies, whatever, bring up certain hormones in people. That's why they have animals and babies, because you're easily controlled and manipulated through the hormone distribution and the triggers of the faucet being turned on constantly when you're around animals and babies. And, of course, sexuality on top of that. Yeah. And then what happens when you have so much competing influences, whether it's in your house, in your circle of people, or in your body, then you're all fighting for the resources. And then it's the weakest one that dies first, because they didn't have what it takes. They were the runt of the litter. The people who die are the runt of the litter of their circle of friends and family. That's basically what happens. People who die or who are in diagnosable conditions causing them to deteriorate on a rapid level, they become the runt of the litter over time. But they've chosen that because, again, if you can't handle pain and suffering, you're going to choose to keep treating your disease, causing more conflicting programming or competition because of all the treatments develop the offspring. And so Adam and Eve is an allegory of humans who were told one story and then could not handle the other side of the story. So when Adam and Eve became knowledgeable and aware of the world they lived in, it was not the fantasy they thought it was pain and suffering. Just like the women when they bear a baby, after all that pleasure in paradise, and they have a child, and that child is like a pain and suffering because of labor pains. Which is why they give you drugs so you don't feel anything. But then that child also will work against you later on. They might give you, social capital and acceptance into society, but then with that, you pay for it. Mothers pay with their life because they end up dying first, unless that child is really deficient. And so when Adam and Eve became knowledgeable and aware of the world they lived in, it was not the fantasy they thought it was pain and suffering, just like you're in right now. And right now, many people are being ousted from the Garden of Eden, and will they survive the world outside of Eden? See, that's the thing. That's what climate change was you're being ousted from the Garden of Eden. No more pleasure in paradise. Stores are closing. Airplanes are not as safe, right? Accidents happening. People are going off half-cocked, triggered easily. Then you have the diagnosable conditions and the diet suddenlies. Oh yeah, pleasure in paradise is done with. You're out of the Garden of Eden. Now you're in pain and suffering. You are out there in the hinterlands trying to survive without all of your friends and family who are dying all around you. When everyone around you who you used to depend upon is dead, what are you going to fucking do? Are you going to die with them, or are you going to find a way to survive? So going back to Eden, to earn your way back into Eden, you have to go through the pain and suffering. But now you've shown God or whoever that you can handle the tree of knowledge without destroying your fellow man. So to get back to the Garden of Eden, it might not look the same. It might be you just staying home and staying safe and eating the foods that you have access to and watching Netflix and writing and reading and looking out your garden and watching the wild animals play. That might be the different, Garden of Eden than being out there partying and doing drugs and alcohol and being stupid out there with other people. Okay? And so yeah, when you are constantly in pain and suffering because of the choices you've made, and inevitably that day will happen, you're showing God or whoever you can't handle the tree of knowledge because you kept doing the same thing over again, expecting a different result. So when I went out this last weekend for 2 days, one day after the other, I probably should just went out that one day and not the next day, but hey, I was testing my adaptability. Am I going to suffer for being out here? Is what I've thought to be true as far as microbes and diverse company, are they going to come inside my body and metastasize and cause me to go through a pain? Will it just be coughing and sneezing, blowing my nose and being tired and pulling out crap? Or will it be a whole week-long thing of the entities metastasizing so quickly inside, and then they're going through my lymphatic system and causing me then the fevers and the fatigue and the hunger and the release and the neck pain. And I'm like, oh gosh, yeah. So I brought that on myself. I'm not going to blame anyone I was hanging out with. No, it's not their fault. I'm not going to blame even the system. Now I get to see actions and consequences. I made a choices and consequences. I made a choice to go out there and hang out with people knowing what I know about the world. And I suffered for it. Was it worth it? Well, I guess. But I didn't know how bad it was going to be. I assumed that maybe, hey, it would just be like, coughing and sneezing and that's about it. No. You hear my voice right now, right? Maybe you hear it, maybe you don't. And so diagnosable conditions and died suddenly is also a pain and suffering because you're watching those around you suffer, which is a suffering. You are a living allegory. I do great when I'm not out there in public for long periods of time. I don't get sick as often when I'm at home most of the time on my own. My husband comes home, okay, I'll feel stuff, but it's not as aggressive as I go around other people with their own stuff that they're dealing with. That's Mother Nature. And when I'm out in mixed company for long periods of time, I will pay my dues. And it will be in pain and suffering and have to eat a lot to make up the difference. That's the payment system of social capital, pain and suffering, or a died suddenly. And so I will suffer from my choices of hanging out in public if I choose to. If I make the choice, I'm the one that caused my own pain and suffering. The system warned me. I heed the warnings of the system and determine if I have the capacity to be in that kind of pain and suffering after a social event. It may not be worth it because to release those demons, it's freaking painful. Okay? And so then I said there is such a thing as real or fake clouds. Real equals ignorance equals organic. So when someone says, oh, look, my garden, it's all organic. Okay? Well, your ignorance, is it really organic? I mean, I guess it's all how you perceive what organic is. And you make up all these meanings and stories behind organic and synthetic. When I see people posting the ingredients in the U.S. Quaker oatmeal and then in the U.K. Quaker oatmeal, and they're like, oh, look, this one's poison and this one's not. And I'm like, no, this has more innovation. This has more of the nutrients that your body needs. And the one in the U.K. actually is missing nutrients and minerals and things that your body needs. So maybe those in the U.S. are getting a lot more nutrients and minerals than those in the U.K. So it's all how you want to position and characterize ingredients. But you see how people spin shit. I see it all the time all over Facebook. I don't say anything anymore because there's no point in trying to argue someone's perception of what is healthy or unhealthy because it's all relative to where you stand from. Okay? And so real equals ignorance and organic. Fake equals knowledge and synthetic. That's the thing about knowledge. You realize the world is not what you thought. The world is contrived. It's planned. To shit on knowledge while embracing ignorance is the activism community. The clouds were either all real or all fake. When you jockey between the two, you're showing when you become knowledgeable of the world and how it works. What did he know and when did he know it? What did she know and when did she know it? And so you're watching the conspiracy community wake up, but then they stay asleep. They're like, oh, wow, the clouds are fake. But instead of saying, okay, that's how it works now, the world is not organic, it is contrived. No, they think that they can go back and go back to, what was it? They can go back to Eden. No. Once you realize that the clouds were fake, there's no going back to Eden and saying, okay, let's go back to organic. That's not fucking possible. Once you know, you can't unknow it. And there's no point in resisting it, but people do, even in the conspiracy world. That's the irony of the conspiracy world. It's kind of funny, actually. And so when you jockey between the two, you're showing when you became knowledgeable of the world and how it works. You're like an Adam and Eve. Yeah, maturity is not easy. It's easier to stay ignorant and immature and resist. Right now, through climate change, many people are being ousted from the Garden of Eden called Earth. That's called die suddenly. Because you embrace ignorance over knowledge. But don't worry, there's also a segment of society and the conspiracy community that says your body is just a vessel and you'll live forever. That's not my mantra. So there is your absolution. They're giving you permission to pass away and they're helping you embrace it. There's something for everybody. So yes, there is some side of the community that says, yeah, your body's just a vessel. Let it just die off and don't treat it with respect and just do whatever you want to it. And then your spirit lives on. Okay, that's fine. But ask Zach Bagan what it's like to talk to ghosts. And the ghosts have their own issues. They're in a loop. Because as soon as they died, they stayed stuck in that world that they lived in. They were in Groundhog Day. And the only way they're able to get out of Groundhog Day, if they find a way to strategize their way into another human being, either by possession and try to steal a place in that human being, or they try to find somebody about to have sex and be the one to be conceived into that womb. And I don't know. You know, that's the world I don't know about because I'm not dead. So if you want to be, you know, trying to talk to Zach Bagan through all these different devices that he uses, and yeah, go ahead, embrace that your body's just a vessel. It's okay to disrespect it, and you'll live forever talking through machines. Woo, that's great. There's something for everybody, right? And so I wrote about Groundhog Day and about predictable platforms to give way to innovation that's unpredictable, because you got to have a balance, plus and minus, and it's all relative to what you think is plus and minus. And so I use my relationship as an example of predictability and unpredictability. So I'm more of the unpredictable one because I'm going through evolution that people can't predict what I'm going to evolve to from whatever. And my husband is predictable. He is one of those. He's the backbone of our society. Many people like him are the backbone of our society. You can't get mad at them. You can't even blame them for resisting change, but they were necessary. But eventually, even the predictable people have to figure out how to implement small changes without completely throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And so I like using my relationship as a metaphor to show you what it's like to deal with plus and minus. Because yeah, I'm the innovator and he's the predictable one. He's the one that will get up every day, go to work, fight the good fight out there, take on family and friends, go out there, and I don't get in the way of that. I do not get in the way of what he wants. That's why I let him spend what he needs to spend, to have the toys with certain limits, so he doesn't spend his bad existence and collect things he can't eat, but there'll be a certain amount of that. So as long as I'm fed and he's fed, I'm not really worried about it. So predictable outcomes comes from predictable people, and they gave us a safety net so the innovators can do their job. My relationship is exactly like this. My husband is the predictable safety net, and he's so amazing. I am the innovator who needs to work from a stable platform. But now it's time for everyone to embrace change, even the innovators. Okay, so I have to embrace change. So does the stable one. So the movie Groundhog Day, fear, starvation, and turned hoarding. So the Tavistock think tank is probably the most strategic institute you will ever peripherally hear about from the conspiracy theorist point of view. Now I learned about them from the conspiracy community probably 10 years ago. I don't know if the person is still on my Facebook or not. They're probably my old account. But Tavistock understands balance better than you and your family will ever know, because they not only helped develop the storylines you have become so familiar with, but they also found the right people for the job. They developed a society with pockets of cultures and found ways to pull out the best resources while developing the needed support systems around those resources. So like those concentric circles, you have your government, your commerce right there in the middle, and you have all the different supporting industries and suburbs, and then you have all the different cultures. And then you had all the different agencies to manage how the cultures were going to assimilate with each other. And then you had the justice system and all this stuff, right? Okay, so Tavistock developed layers and layers of lifestyles and belief systems within politics, religion, and sciences. So that way you and your families would be predictable, congruent, and resistant when the fear of change had to happen. Remember, the best innovation and resources came from a certain amount of resistance until a new innovation develops, or all-out annihilation. Okay? And so when they are innovating people, some people can handle the innovation and they evolve and they become whatever they were programmed to be. And you heard about the MK Ultra and stuff. Other people didn't survive the innovative tactics. They died in the process. And you could say that those were electroshock therapy, those that were, going through all the different wars and all the different torture tactics and all that stuff. I mean, I don't love what makes somebody innovative. It's tough to watch. All that positive and negative programming is tough to watch, but that's how you get an advanced society, is through the pain and suffering. And it sucks. It really does. And that's why the system has had to do this shit over and over and over again to find a way to not have to do this again, but there'll be a certain amount of pain and suffering for innovation to keep society moving forward, or else you have Universe 25 and all-out extinction, and you don't want that. So remember, the best innovation and resources come from a certain amount of resistance until the new innovation develops or all-out annihilation. Predictable outcomes from predictable people deliver relative safety, security, and a space for growth and development. When one platform of people are relatively predictable, feeding off the safety and predictability of their lifestyle and belief systems, the innovators of our society can cause other areas of society to be unpredictable, innovative, and strategic. So a storm brews east while the west is predictably going through their emotions until the storm from the east envelops the west and then wipe out. Now you can reverse that and say the storm brews west, like California or even New York, and then the stable, like the flyover states, the stable working class community, right in the middle between the two coasts, they're the ones that are actually the backbone of society. They're the stability, and then the left is the innovators, while the right are the stability. That's how we were able to evolve and be a superpower, because we knew how to balance out both sides. But now the system doesn't need that anymore. They want everyone to merge together, and they're causing the chaos for the innovation, and I hope you survive it. Okay, so the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray was an allegory about fear of change, learning the lessons of the past. Not unlike many of you, Bill Murray's character was a debaucherous male or female who consistently leered at every female or male, took everything he had for granted, and was cynical about life and relationships. He was basically too big for his britches. Well, the universe decided to teach him a lesson and forced him to relive the same day over and over and over again until he figured out that if he changed the way he thought about women and humans, then maybe things would be better. But I didn't say that. And forced him to believe the same day over again until he figured out that if he changed the way he thought about humans and women, that maybe he'll learn something. So anyways, the kicker was, if he strategized his reactions to predictable outcomes, not only could he be the best manipulator, but potentially also find ways to change the outcome. Okay, so strategizing predictable outcomes to come out in his favor was his superpower, until he became tired of knowing what was going to happen time and time again. Okay, so strategizing predictable outcomes. What does that mean? Well, he figured out by just asking certain questions of the person that he was eventually going to try to go to bed with, which is that girl that he pretended that he knew from a long time ago. He asked her certain questions, and the next time that he relived the day, he then said, "Oh yeah, I was in your class and this and that." And so he fed off the information she gave him in the prior day. But he knew that he was going to bump into her. He knew that she didn't know him. And so he pretended to know her, and that's how he got into bed. Okay? And that's the thing. The system knows when you have children, and they know how predictable you are with your children, they'll know how to manipulate because they know what's going to happen. You take away food, you do this, you tease them with this, and you know how they're going to react. And so the system can get whatever the fuck they want out of you because they know how you react. It's already been a Groundhog Day. You've had 50 children, all the same types. You have all your doppelgangers out there, all the clones out there. It's not that difficult, right? And so anyway, so the kicker was, if he strategized his reactions to predictable outcomes, not only could he be the best manipulator, but potentially also find ways to change the outcomes. Strategizing predictable outcomes to come out in his favor was his superpower, until he became tired of knowing what was going to happen until time and time again. So eventually he stopped taking advantage of people, women, and his coworkers, and even started treating people with respect and reverence. He won the girl and happily ever after, right? But yeah, the system is like a Bill Murray. And the system is showing you through social media and how many clones and drones were developed for predictability, redundancy, and even human experimentation. The system also is showing you how easy it is to manipulate predictable people who are given all the same storylines, and all they need to do is just say boo. And all they need to do is just say boo, and people react the same way. However, you you also are a Bill Murray, completely aware of the system manipulating you with fear and also with change, because it has to. You see, you get the luxury of knowing what will happen through the conspiracy community. And if you had enough substance and life force within you, you could change your ways and respect not only yourself, but women, men, and your families and friends in a different way. But if you do not have enough life force within you and you were starving, malnourished, and completely shut down from evolution, you would stick with the programming and storylines in the conspiracy community and traditional lifestyles and stay stuck on the fear of food, change, and economical innovation. And so Bill Murray's character was very resistant while experiencing Groundhog Day over and over and over again until he realized he had to change his ways. And so many of you are starving, very resistant. Bill Murray's character was very resistant while experiencing Groundhog Day over and over again. Okay, so many of you are starving, resistant, and malnourished, and so you are stuck in the Groundhog Days of tradition, activism, fear of food, air, water, and hate change. The outcome of resistance to change has a predictable outcome, called died suddenly, while ignoring indicators of warnings. Okay, before you died suddenly, you were resistant to change, and as a result, you have no more strength in you. You gave it away to your family, friends, coworkers, and to the resistance movement developed by Tavistock while collecting and hoarding cheap Chinese goods, cash, friends, family, experiences, remedies, diets, deities, okay, deities and diets, same thing, spirituality, and baubles, and in total denial you are starving and deficient of valuable nutrients and in pain when the climate changes yet again, predictably yet again. Do you think the system will be upset when the people fall through the cracks, literally through and figuratively? No, because the system gave you many chances to change your ways. The system gave you many chances to release your trauma. They gave you many chances to figure out a game plan to save yourself and maybe your family if you had that kind of power. So the system will not be sorry for what they're doing because they gave you so many chances. The system gave you the last 100 years to figure out climate change, and you became a denier and a resistor, and you led from your drama and trauma, and that's how you identify yourself and other people, through your drama and trauma. Do you think the system wants to reproduce that in all of your kids? No. They're not sorry for releasing demons they developed in you. You chose yourself as disposable with your lifestyle and belief systems and greed. They're just honoring your choices. And so mainstreamers are just as resistant and in denial as the conspiracy community. So the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations is a British non-profit organization that explores human relations. The institute was founded in London in 1946 and has been exploring human relations since 1947. The Tavistock Institute work includes research and evaluation, mental health, team working, professional development, young people, education and training, consultancy, international products. The Institute's professional development programs include residential conferences and one-to-one coaching. And so Tavistock wanted you to think that cash was king. Cash is not king, okay? Food is king, which is why you've been scared away from food. And so you're seeing that the whole people are like, oh, cash only. You're seeing M&Ms and, oh, look, I'm famous. Cash only. Here, cash. All the cash. Be rich. Be famous. Collect cash. Hoard wealth. And you're seeing even the rappers are all about showing you all their cash. And all the people are like, oh, yeah, only do a cash society. Be afraid of digital. And they're showing you their cash. How is that not any different than the hip-hop community showing you all their cash and the gold teeth and the gold necklaces and their fancy cars and their cribs, like MTV, right? And so then they scared you away from food. They said today more than 95% of all chronic diseases is caused by food choice. Oh, now they're making you afraid of food. Toxic food ingredients, nutritional deficiencies, and lack of physical exercise. And so, yeah, I said in a closed immune system, but they're demonizing the soda. They're demonizing the hamburger, and they're showing you a big person. I'll tell you, you're going to need some of that fat. Not all of it, but you're going to need some fat on you to deal with climate change. You're going to need all the foods out there. That's why the fast foods are even raising their prices, because they know that's even needed. People realize how much sustenance they need even from fast food. All right? And so, one thing for sure, I will never assume I'm 100% safe from anything. I must know the obstacles in the areas that I'm in today. Everyone will have their own set of obstacles they will have to deal with. Just make sure you know what they are. So this thing with April 8th that's coming up, and I don't know what's going to happen. Believe me, I can't predict the future. I can only listen to indicators and maybe feed off of some of my conspiracy community. And also what the mainstream is saying, that they're preparing for who knows what with bandages, and hospital systems were prepared for the influx of people. Yeah, they're saying damage to the eyes because of, people looking at the sun, and here wear these glasses and all that. But they're also looking at traffic and, lack of food. They're even saying there might be even communication outages, which, okay. And so, just figure out, regardless of anything's going to happen April 8th or even a day or even a week or a month after, just figure out your area. No one's ever 100% safe. Even my area could be a lightning that could cause my house to whatever, a fire. And so fires and earthquakes and floods and flash floods and mud floods and hurricanes and sinkholes and volcanoes and lightning and power outages and asteroids, nuclear war, riots, disease, extreme heat, extreme cold, tornadoes, sandstorms, pestilence, blizzards, drought. Those are all the things that you could potentially encounter, in 2024. That already in Texas, they're experiencing large amounts of rain. They had a lot of fires. Okay? California's getting all the floods too, like Texas. And they're going to have their heat. They had their tornadoes. Okay, so no one is 100% safe. America is kind of like the barometer. When we're suffering a lot, the rest of the world will be suffering too. We're kind of the indicator. And so when I saw that the Northeast Ohio is preparing for total solar eclipse, I was like, oh my God. And so, yeah, when they say preparing hospitals, the Ohio Hospital Association has been making preparations for the event ever since 2022. Helping hospitals across the state prepare for even unforeseen challenges and scenarios, and potentially even Disease X. Disease X. When you think about them preparing ever since 2022, it wasn't just for Disease X. Yeah, it's probably for that, but also for the solar eclipse that might even trigger Disease X. Who knows? And so, preparing hospitals, bandages, hope it's nothing. I hope they're just being over-prepared. I don't know. I don't remember in 2017 being this crazy, but then I was distracted with the Jilly Juice world. Ohio is preparing for the 2024 solar eclipse on April 8th. And so they're pausing construction projects, providing traffic control, providing safety tips, providing programs and activities, and preparing hospitals. And during the April 8th solar eclipse, more than 100 hospitals in Ohio will be in its expected path. And so Ohio sits on the New Madrid seismic zone, an area that includes Missouri and adjacent states. In 1811 and 1812, 4 destructive quakes happened here, and were felt throughout the eastern United States. Okay? So I wouldn't even rule out earthquakes. And you can look at the April 8th path that is going to happen, as well as what happened in 2017, that path there, and then also the New Madrid fault line. So it seems like everything is now intersecting each other, and we're going to see what happens. And then you have the Forbes map that shows you then parts of the United States underwater. Okay? And you'll look at that. And so the Forbes doomsday map seems more and more legit. Figure out where you are in the world and what could potentially happen. And just so you know, Gaza might be underwater in the future. So I would pay attention to saving yourself more than trying to save someone else 6,000 miles away. Because if you're here in America, you might have bigger fish to fry, or anywhere in the world. You need to pay attention to what's going on your soil, not somebody else's. We have become so privileged to think that we don't have to pay attention to our own backyard until our backyard is underwater. All right? And so there's that. And then there's the giants of Africa. And then pay attention to Yuval Noah Harari. And a failing society descending into moral decay when they're worshiping the cars and the big houses. But they had to get your attention somehow, right? That's why you don't collect gold and cash. Make sure you have food to eat. Make sure you build up enough substance to handle changes. Streamline your immune system. Dollar bills and bills mean you're going to have to owe someone or something, because you have to convert that to something you can eat. Okay? So the poor will eat dollar bills while the rich eat food. And when your friends and family stop supplying you with your food and a way to convert it with cash and trinkets, you'll turn to the government because everyone will be taking care of themselves. I will not rely on friends and family to keep me alive because they have their own issues to deal with. They have to keep themselves alive. And then the government has to keep us alive for them to govern. And so the poor convert their body into cash and baubles and make themselves be food for somebody else, but they don't pay attention to food. And I see that highly sexualized people make themselves be food for somebody else. Okay, so you see how people convert food into something they can't eat. That's crazy. And so I said, starving people can't eat what they collect. They just hoard. Every item someone hoards represents a memory of the past they can't hold on to because they're riddled with distractions or pathologies. That's why everything is going digital, so you can remember things on the internet and not destroy Earth. The Learning Channel showed you the pathogenesis of hoarding and the link to starvation. And when you listen to those people talking about the trauma they went through, yeah, they're starving. And they're feeding their demons with things they can't eat because they can't release. And they even surround themselves with rotting food. And it's very scary how many people are falling into that pathogenesis. You could be morbidly obese and be starving and collecting everything under the sun, or severely underweight collecting everything under the sun, or be riddled with cancer and disease, chronic illness, hoarding everything under the sun, even hoarding experiences. Okay, like trips and whatever. And people would rather starve than give up an experience. People even collect pets because they're starving. Starvation of food makes people hoard baubles and items and cash they cannot eat, and a whole slew of friends. People feed whatever is most influential. The West has become very greedy, and they say all food has been poisoned, but here, buy this nonsensical item, or the myriad of sexual orientations all over the world. Highly sexualized economies come from people who are starving. And I see the link to aggressive sexual orientation and families to starvation. I see the link to all the disease and cancer to starvation. I see the link to resistance and starvation. Yeah, the West is starving. But here they have something for you to buy, a new hair color, a new pair of lips, a statue, another vacuum, another religion, another food mitigation diet, another sexual orientation, or another family member. Here, I have a baby. Starving people hoard. Or WHORED. They can't handle food, so they hoard everything. Cultivating and sustaining resistance in their lifestyle, politics, religions, and sciences will cause dire suddenly situations. Resistance is futile. Remember, you can't eat cash or silver or gold. Make sure you have enough substance to you and enough food for a certain amount of time. If you think the banks will go down, make sure you have access to food, because once we get digital currency, not crypto, who's going to want to trade their food for your cash? Because cash will be useless if we are resorting to digital currency, not crypto. Which is why you see businesses are shutting down. Digital currency will be king one day. Your cash will be useless because you can't eat it. When there is only one place to buy food using your bank card, and you can't just live on your garden alone, and livestock will be outlawed because it's harm to animals, cash will not be king unless you use it to burn fuel. The cash won't even be worth the paper it's printed on. Don't let people scare you into thinking if the banks go down, you're going to die. Don't let people think that you should hoard cash because you can't eat it. And I won't sell my food for your cash. I can't eat your cash. When it comes to goods and services, bartering. Bartering is king. What kind of skills and goods do you have in your house? But you can't eat cash. And when you can only get your food from the government, do you really think someone's going to sell their government food for cash they can't eat? They can get their clothes from Amazon using digital currency, not crypto. Food is king, not cash. Making somebody dinner with your food for their services for product is king. Because once your skills in a certain area are not needed to the average guy, only to an employer, food will always be king. I've given food away, but I won't sell my food to somebody. I can't eat that money. What's the point of selling food to convert it to another food? That's wasting money. That's wasting energy. I won't sell food to convert to another food. And I don't need to have half the crap out there that people buy. That's why people want cash, because they want to buy crap for cheap. Converting food into cash means you are buying shit you really don't need. And if you have to pay people under the table, then what kind of services are you getting? It's not regulated and could even be dangerous. And then why waste your time converting cash into food when you've converted food into cash? It's a waste. So here's the energy conversion of survival in this new world. You work for an employer. They direct deposit your paycheck into your bank account. You buy food and needed items and sometimes unneeded items. What happens when the internet goes down and there's no commerce? You still have to eat. You're not going to buy the bullshit. Someone can sell you stuff and collect cash. Maybe they can convert it to digital currency, but that would require them having a bank and paying taxes on the income. And do you think that situation is going to happen after often making money off of a blackout? Because if you're going to capitalize on the system going down, you're going to have to pay the piper. It doesn't make sense hoarding cash and gold coins. What do people use cash for? Hypnotizing people with wealth and riches, buying under the table services, paying off kids, buying their love. When businesses only accept cash, and you know that's going to the wayside, people who only use cash will be priced out of the economy, and there might be fire or something happening in their community. Resistance is futile. When everything is online and there's no storefronts to convert things, cash will just be a decoration and wallpaper. And then when you hoard things by converting the digital currency into items like baubles and trinkets to then convert to cash, and the system doesn't accept cash anymore, you will starve. You might as well be a beggar because your cash is no good. Cash will never be king because we are in an online digital world, and the government is tired of corruption in the people. They're tired of people taking advantage of others. And if you think the government is corrupt, you are the government. You are the ones that force them to figure out what the hell you are on and what you're doing. Remember, the mafia was a people. Gangs and drug cartels are people. The system had to infiltrate, and they had to become the very thing that they resisted, and then they had to regulate. Here's one example of a trucker who cannot rely on cash. When a trucker is stopped in the middle of his route forced to be marooned at a truck stop, and there is no commerce going on, they have to eat food. They must have food. You can't assume that even selling food will keep you alive during that time. The restaurants will have to eat that food or give it away. Even truckers can't eat cash. They need food, especially when they are far away from home. Don't ever let someone scare you into thinking that cash is king, because obviously they're starving, falling into the fear campaigns developed by Tavistock. That was a lot of information. So why do you need to move inland? Because many people are exposed. El Nino, La Nina, they're going to be crazy. And then I had a lot of food yesterday. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm done. And so you need to eat food. That's all I can say. You need to eat food. Cash is not king. Food is king. Bye.